What do you want me to do?
I don't know, Morris. You're the genius around here.
All right.
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Scholars! Welcome back to Art 101. Me, Mr. Burgher. As you know, I'm a professional artist, I'm a master educator, and I'm here to attempt to provide you with the best in art historical content, art historical videos. If you like it, if you find value in it, make sure you subscribe, share, follow along, get all your buddies together for the viewing, whatever.
You want information, and I need something in return.
As you know, sometimes I talk about artists, sometimes I talk about specific artworks. Today, we're talking about a whole movement. We're talking about German Expressionism, and we're going to do that using a tool. The tool is civilization.
haben Sie clear.
That's right. How could the Germans have used German Expressionism to obtain a cultural victory with their civilization? Let's take a look. The early 20th century German art movement that placed a focus on the artist's inner feelings or ideas above realistic renderings of the observable world to us today is known as German Expressionism. Now, before World War I, or the Great War, artists would popularly work in a Parisian Fauvist style, led by the liberator of color, Henri Matisse. But the state-sponsored art education in Germany was a part of their frustration, and so they pushed for a change. The change that became German Expressionism was not just artistic, but dealt with economics, art, dance, architecture, politics, music, sculpture, literature, and cinema. But again, we're putting our focus on the visual arts here. The visual arts were characterized by simple shapes, bright colors, and gestural marks within the artworks. There are two dominating groups, however, there is also a third that would come later, but the two would be Die Brücke and Der Blaue Reiter. Now, Die Brücke, or the bridge, was led by Ernst Kirchner, and Der Blaue Reiter, or the Blue Reiter, was founded by Wassily Kandinsky and Franz Marc. Although two different groups, they both approached art in a very similar way. And there again, when they dissolved, a third group would come about after World War I. Die Neue Sachlichkeit, or the new objectivity, developed as a response to the post-war realism that began to trend in Germany after World War I. At any rate, German Expressionism would influence the mid-century abstract expressionists that would follow. So let's take a quick look at each of these three groups, the major players involved, and what caused the rise and fall of each. And because there's so much stuff that we can talk about with each artist, I'm just going to focus on the time during the existence of the group.
I'm so proud of you.
So first off, we have Die Brücke, or the bridge, which started in Dresden in 1905. The intended meaning behind the bridge is that they wanted to have a bridged gap between the art world and the bourgeoisie societies that were really in vogue at the time. They wanted to have complete freedom of life and have a bit of a return to nature. This group would be in effect until 1913 when it finally dissolved away. You see, the founder, Ernst Kirchner, wrote a book that was an account of the group's activities, and the members were pretty upset about it. So when Chronik der Brücke came out in 1913, sometimes called Chronik KG Brücke, or the story of the artist group Bridge, came out, they were done. Again, this group was founded by Ernst Kirchner, and after founding the group, he really put himself in 100% into the creation of art. He would do a lot of writings, including the group's manifesto in 1906, helping host a group show that same year that had focused on female nudes. Again, the book that he wrote telling the tales of the membership would cause the group to dissolve in 1913, and shortly thereafter he would have fought in World War I but discharged due to mental issues.
I don't want to be the bad guy anymore.
Erich Heckel was another artist of note in Brücke. While studying architecture in Dresden, he would meet others that would encourage him to join the group. The work that he did for the group was largely as their business manager and worked to network with other artists and other groups. Now, by the time World War I had broke out with him, he was attempting to volunteer but was assigned as a medical orderly in World War I out of Berlin in 1914.
On the other side of the screen, it all looks so easy.
Fritz Bleyl worked predominantly in graphics and posters for the group. He was only in Brücke for about 2 years before he quit in order to help provide and care for his family, as he got married during the time of his membership. But during those 2 years, he had exhibited with the group 21 times between 1905 and 1907.
Come on, sucker!
And the last member we're going to highlight is Emil Nolde. Now, he is noted as one of the first German expressionists and absolutely a great member to have in this group. However, even though he was an abstract expressionist, a German expressionist, he was also a racist, an anti-Semite, and a Nazi supporter. He was only a member for about a year, but after World War I, he would be seen by the Nazis as a degenerate, despite the fact that he was a supporter.
Yeah.
Der Blaue Reiter, or the Blue Reiter, was founded in 1909 in Munich, Germany, and was a much more informal group. You see, Brücke was kind of formal. They had membership, they had organization, but Der Blaue Reiter was a little bit more loose. This group was kind of an offshoot of another group called the New Artist Association that was operating in Munich. The Blue Riders very much references Franz Marc's love of horses, but it also references a specific painting that was created by Wassily Kandinsky called The Blue Reiter from 1903. This group would create several publications, including an almanac, and hold a few exhibitions, but their plans very much changed with the beginnings of World War I.
I'm not sure I want to remember what went on down here.
Wassily Kandinsky, again, is one of the founding members. He was a Russian artist and art theorist who had moved to Munich in 1896. At this time, he was very much influenced by jazz music, which was an important element to his inspirations personally, but also to the group. As a former president of the New Artist Association, he brought a lot of members with him when he helped found this group. When the war began to blossom, he would take off, moving to Switzerland, then Sweden, and back to his homeland in Russia.
My mission in life is to save all of mankind.
The other founding member is Franz Marc. After a brief stay at the New Artists Association, he would split from the group, obviously to found this group, and his influence with the group was his influence of futurism, cubism, and very much the use of color. As we get closer and closer to 1914 and the beginning of World War I, he was drafted to serve in the Imperial German Army and died in battle in France at the Battle of Verdun.
As long as you exist, the nightmares will come again and again.
August Macke was informed by ideas of Impressionism and Post-Impressionism and really the art that was coming out of Paris just prior to that time. Each one of these artists is working a little bit differently. There isn't really a concrete way that the Der Blaue Reiter artists were making art. Clearly. He also died the second month of World War I, in September of 1914, in Champagne, France.
I was not expecting that. But I was expecting not to expect something, so it doesn't count.
Paul Klee connected with several art groups in Munich, and with Der Blaue Reiter, he was the editor of their almanac after meeting Macke and Kandinsky. He was a very valuable member to the group, but he also liked his independence, and so he wasn't really locked in 100%. He helped organize their first show on December the 18th, 1911, that ended on January the 1st, 1912, but he did show in their second and final show that took place from February the 12th until March 18th of 1912.
If you can't beat him, blind him.
Gabriele Münter was very much associated with Kandinsky. You see, they studied and lived together, and she was influenced by him and color, but also Gauguin and Vincent van Gogh. She is one of the first to exhibit with the group after helping to found it, and she was very much drawn to the idea that they were trying to connect the visual arts with music, as well as symbolism, associations of color, and an intuitive approach to painting.
I'm only trying to turn you into a lady. And a lady should be modest.
Yes, a lady should be modest.
Marianne von Werefkin was an artist who was influenced by post-impressionists like Henri Toulouse-Lautrec and was often known as the French woman despite her being Russian. She was a participant in the New Artist Association, Der Blaue Reiter, and the Brücke all at the same time. As we got closer to World War I, there was lots of family drama that was circling around her personal life, but during the war she would flee to Switzerland.
I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
Yeah, well, just keep your Power Gloves off her, pal, huh?
Now, with Macke and Marc both being killed in World War I, when the war came to a close, the movement and association of these artists was also dissolved, somewhat formally in 1918.
No, it's not funny, and I wasn't crying, okay? There's a lot of debris around here.
The Neue Sachlichkeit, or the New Objectivity, was founded in the 1920s. This was very much a reaction against Expressionism. Specifically, they wouldn't focus so much on nature as much as they would put a focus on emotional experiences. A couple of artists that were in this group were Otto Dix, who was influenced by the Dada, pre-surrealist type artists after World War I. He became a contributing member of the group in 1925, creating works that were very much critical of his contemporary German civilization. He would create works that focused on a little bit darker side of life, violence, and death. Despite being a World War I veteran, he was denounced by the German government just before World War II and labeled as a degenerate artist. George Grosz was also a prominent Dada artist, as well as creating work under the New Objectivity. Eventually, his artwork caught the attention and he was seen as an enemy to the government state, and so he had to do a lot of undercover sorts of artworks, running from the authorities and so forth. He saw some changes that were on the horizon in Germany and he didn't like it, so he left for the United States of America in 1932 and became an American citizen in 1938.
All right, hold on, there we go. All right, there it is. Ram jam, you finished. Okay, one more.
And that brings us to Max Beckmann. Although he was very much seen and is seen as an expressionist, he rejected the idea and any associations that he had with the group. There is a sense of unease and tension in most of the artworks that he was making during this time. As the Nazi regime rose to power, his civil criticism also increased, which didn't win him any favors with the Nazi government. In the 1920s, he was winning awards and was really seen as a master of art, but within 10 years, he was seen as an enemy of the government and personally criticized by Adolf Hitler. In 1933, even being called a civil Bolshevik by the German government. And so he fled for safety to the United States.
Anyone who opposes me will be destroyed.
Now, this group was shut down in 1933 and condemned by the German government for being an enemy of the state, as you can tell by the trend with all of these artists. Many of them were exiled and banned from making art, but all of them, each one of these unique German expressionist groups contributed to what would follow. The abstract expressionists like Jackson Pollock, Helen Frankenthaler, Robert Motherwell, and Cy Twombly would not have grown to the prominence without being led in the direction by the German expressionists that came before them. So although their movements and their groups and associations were very short-lived, their impact was very, very great in the art world. Well, friends, that's how you win a cultural victory with the Germans and German Expressionism. Thanks for following along. We'll see you next time. You have yourself a good day.